other than it's next to you.
There you go.
I'd like to call the
How are
Budget
you?
Review Committee to order. It's April 5th, 2018. It's 7 PM and we're in the Aldermanic Chamber. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
Here.
Alderman at Large Brian McCarthy is not present. Oh, present. There you are. Okay. Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien is
Over
present.
there.
Alderman at Large David Tenza. Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
Present.
And Alderman Jan Smith. I'm here. Okay, and our Chair, Alderman Richard Dowd.
Present.
Okay.
Other members? Anybody?
Oh, yes. Alderwoman Gathright is also present.
And
And
Gidge?
Alderman Ken Gidge.
Okay. We have,
Oh, and, excuse me, Alderman Patricia Clay. All right, look at them.
okay. So, tonight we're here to do the police budget, but before that, we have an opportunity for public comment. I see only one person that would be favorable to the police. Communications,
There is none.
new business,
There is none.
unfinished business,
There is none.
tabled in committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take from the table R 18019.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to take from this table R 1809, which is the budget, so we can discuss the police division. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. So this evening, we are going to be addressing public safety, Police Department, Department 150. The revenues are on page 40. The appropriations are on page 141. So also, the way we're doing the budgeting this year, we're giving, because we have so many new members on the board, we're doing an overview of each division before we get started into the budgets. So with that, Chief?
Good evening. First slide.
Just one thing, when anybody speaks, because the person recording it, taking the dictation, can't see who it is, please state your name. And Chief?
Chief Andrew Lavoy. We'd like to start off with our mission statement. The National Police Department strives to improve the quality of life in its community and to protect people and property in partnership with the citizens of Nashua. Next slide. If I can draw your attention to our organizational chart. As you can see, we work directly for the Board of Police Commissioners. If you're not familiar, the Police Commission are appointed by the Executive Council after being nominated by the Governor, and their 3-year terms. We have Commissioner Matt Plant and Nicholas Dahl with us this evening as well. Right under them is myself, Chief of Police, and directly under me is Internal Affairs, Financial Services, and the Safety and Equipment Division. And then we're broken up. We have 5 bureaus. And our 2 deputy chiefs command all of the bureaus. And our deputy chief of operations commands IT, media relations, and then the bureaus he commands are the Detective Bureau, the Services Bureau, Professional Standards Bureau, and Legal Bureau. And you can see the bureaus are broken down into the divisions that make them up, such as the Detective Bureau, the Criminal Investigation Division, Crime Analysis, Special Investigation, and Narcotics. And that's Deputy Michael Carrigan, who's here to my right. And our Deputy Chief of Uniform Operations is Deputy Chief Linehan, and he commands all uniform-related divisions, and that's Patrol, Detention Services, Special Operations, and Animal Control. Looking at it, it certainly looks like there's a huge partition of power and responsibility. Why does Deputy Kerrigan have so many more things? It's actually manpower-wise, they're virtually equal, because certainly the one patrol bureau is made up of a tremendous amount of people, and that's pretty much equal to the other divisions combined. Next slide. Our breakdown of personnel. You can see we're budgeted for 179 sworn officers. We currently have 172. We have 7 sworn vacancies. Of those, 41 are supervisors, 39 are detectives, and 92 are patrol officers. And we also have a complement of 63 full and part-time civilians with one vacancy, and that is a total personnel of 235 people. The National Police Department is lucky to have a tremendous amount of specialty units. These include the hazardous device unit, often called the bomb squad, our polygraph unit, canine unit, clandestine lab unit, our dive team, ceremonial unit, critical incident management team, our SWAT team. We have an anti-terrorism task force member, our bicycle unit, accident reconstruction unit, motorcycle unit, mobile field force unit, crime scene unit, media relations, crisis intervention, and tactical emergency medical support. And if we can just note our hazardous device unit, we're lucky enough that we are one of the only 2 police departments in all of New Hampshire that has that. They're all FBI trained. Captain Paulson, sitting back here, commands it, and the only other one in the state is the New Hampshire State Police. So we're very lucky to have that. We certainly help out other police departments on a regular basis, surrounding police departments, and that's a mutual aid thing that we're certainly happy to do. It's the same with our SWAT team. We're one of the few agencies large enough to have our own SWAT team, and our SWAT team does the same thing. We certainly handle all issues in Nashua, but the SWAT team also assists other agencies and smaller agencies with situations that require it. So we're certainly happy to do that, and we feel as a larger city and a municipal police department that certainly that's something that we should be doing, and we gladly do so. In addition to our units, we also have some specialized investigative units. These are the domestic violence unit, the school resource unit, senior relations specialist, our POP unit, our traffic unit, our sexual offender officer, our crime analysis, crime prevention officer, and computer forensic unit. Again, we're one of the few departments that has our own computer forensic unit. We were also able to basically get our best bang for the buck with that, because we were able to get our officers and detectives that are involved in that trained federally, and the federal training was free. We were able to get a bunch of federal equipment out of them. So certainly, we're always looking for the best bang for the buck. And that's like when we, certainly if you've seen our facility, we have a large classroom area. We're able to host national schools. We just host a FBI Executive Leadership School training there. And we're able to do that and quite frankly, get some free slots by doing so. So we're constantly looking to save $1 and to maximize our training basically for free if possible. Certainly, we're all familiar with the POP unit and what they do. Our traffic unit, as you know, a couple of years ago when this opioid crisis really reared its head in the most horrible ways, we were forced to pull our traffic unit from mostly traffic duties. They still do occasionally traffic, and put them into drug interdiction. And they, along with the POP unit and along with our narcotics unit, have virtually done mainly drug interdiction for the past several years. Unfortunately, there's still a dramatic need for that, and we will have to continue doing so. Certainly, our motor vehicle stops have gone down because of that, but we still managed to stop over 22,000 vehicles last year, so it's certainly not like vehicles are not being stopped in Nashua. 22,000 vehicles are a lot of vehicles being stopped. And actually, our accidents did not increase much at all. Very marginal increase. So certainly we don't think that's an issue. And again, when we have citizens make requests for traffic enforcement, we're happy to do so. If not with a sector car, we do pull the traffic unit to do traffic one day, a week, one day every 2 weeks, things of that sort. So are there any questions on the makeup of our department? That's obviously the superscripts version. I mean, we do a citizens academy where, quite frankly, we talk for 8 weeks and do presentations for 8 weeks and barely cover a third of our department. So it's very difficult to do everything in one night, but I'd be happy to entertain and answer any questions anyone has on the department in general or specifically.
Okay, do you want to introduce your finance person?
My business manager is Karen Smith, who I have no problem saying is a superstar of the evening, and I'm just telling you that ahead of time. So.
Questions from the board on the operational portion of the police? No? So we have your comprehensive book yet again this year. Thank you for getting it to us ahead this year so we could peruse it ahead of time. And want to see if people have any questions relative to what appeared in the book. No? Yes, Alderman Clee.
I just have one question. I kind of went line by line as what I could, and I don't understand what under 51,900, the budget adjustment of 344. It's on page 1 of 4 on this thing here.
Are you talking the contingency?
It's under the salaries and wages, yeah. It's the appropriation of 51,900. I'm looking here, maybe you, that must be on it. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I can address it. Certainly, the
that's it.
contingency, Chief Lavoy again. Contingencies are for salary negotiation. That's why they're under the salaries. Certainly, that's not something we have to budget it, but it's a number that is confidential for the simple fact that certainly if we put it out ahead of time, then the unions would go, that's exactly what we want. And that's not really negotiation. So that's why it's confidential.
Okay. Other questions? I noticed in the numbers significant increases over the last few years in the drug and related incidences, while other crimes have fallen off. Is that related to the fact that those things aren't happening quite as often, or we're focusing more on the drug issue? Certainly, as a number of times my phone goes off during the day with your arrests, I certainly know you're doing a hell of a job. So, if you could just address that.
Certainly, Chief Lavoy again. Alderman, it's certainly hard to quantify. I can assume, just from our aggressive enforcement, and quite frankly, from how the community's been involved in things such as safe stations, drug court, mental health court, all these things. I think it's certainly a community kind of getting together with a bunch of different things. Certainly I don't think it's any surprise that people that are addicted to opioids or alcohol or any combination of those, and people that have mental health issues and are codependent and medicate, due to their mental health issues, are causing 90% of our crime. I mean, that's been the way it is forever. And they're doing all that to support their habit and things of that sort. So certainly by arresting a lot of the dealers, hopefully there's less drugs out there to purchase. And certainly our informants have been telling us that. But also, I've stated many times, if you have 100 burglaries, you don't have 100 burglars. You have 5 burglars that are, committing 20 burglaries apiece and things of that sort. So certainly a lot of our regulars, for lack of a better word, that have committed these crimes kind of their entire adult lives, quite frankly. A lot of them have been arrested. They've been through drug court and/or safe stations and/or some type of a recovery. And every one of those that is off of opioids, whether it be from us, from everybody working together, is somebody that literally is now out of the crime pool, quite frankly. So, again, it's hard to quantify, but I do think, I don't think we just have, a nicer group of people walking the streets. I don't think we're that lucky. I think it's literally intervention, whether it be police or societal intervention, and I think it all goes together. So it's hard to quantify it, but I'm positive that a lot of crime's gone down because, quite frankly, a lot of the regular people that have been committing it are off of opioids and/or locked up.
The other question I had was, I noticed in reading in that section of your book that the numbers of opioid incidences and perhaps opioid deaths aren't necessarily reflected in the numbers that we see from AMR because they're not called. How do we reconcile all the numbers so we have a really true picture of how many opioid deaths we're having and how many opioid concerns we're having?
Chief Lavoy again. That's an excellent question. I get asked that often. And the simple fact is, it's different way of reporting. And what we mean by that is we are 100% on the deaths. The reason our number is higher than AMR is AMR will respond to an overdose. If the person is alive when they transport that person, they're out of it. They drop the person off because that's their job. And then if the person perishes at the hospital, well, then we're called because any death has to have a death certificate, has to be recorded by the medical examiner. So AMR wouldn't even know about that death. So that's why our deaths are always higher, but our deaths are absolute because they're all matching a death certificate from the medical examiner. Why would some of their overdoses be higher than ours, the simple overdoses that aren't deaths? Simple fact is, when you call 911, it goes directly to Concord. And if it's a medical emergency, AMR gets called first, and then NFR gets called, and then the police get called last. So sometimes if we're really busy, or if for some reason they get there and they just take off with the person, we may not even get there for the call, so we don't record that as an overdose where they do. So, that explains the difference. And, it's usually not a ton. I mean, we're talking 20, 30, 35 different numbers, but our deaths are 100% accurate because, again, they have to be reported by state law.
Questions? Alderman Tenza.
Thank you. Chief, I have a couple of questions. I'm going to start with something you said in the presentation about the mutual aid agreements that you have, that we have with the SWAT team and the critical incident team. When National Police goes out to another town and assists, clearly that reflects back on the department's budget in overtime. Is there any mechanism to reimburse the city in the police department for those calls outside of Nashua?
Chief Lavoy again. We don't charge other police departments for mutual aid. That's just not something you do. We don't want to ever have another police agency worried about asking for help because they're worried they can't pay for it. That's kind of just a hazard of being a large police department that has enough qualified people to help out. We think that's our duty as a large agency. However, in the past, we've been successful in a reasonable amount of time collecting money from the defendant. I know we had a Hollis incident where a defendant was involved, and after a long negotiation, our SWAT team certainly had to take over, and we were able to recoup restitution ordered by the court. But, that's only as good as certainly the person's ability to pay. But so long-winded roundabout way is we would never charge another law enforcement agency, but we have recouped from defendants in the past.
And I think that also includes when you provide aid to the state police and the FBI, right?
Correct.
Other questions? Oh,
I-
follow-up. Alderman Tenza.
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, just about the budget. Mayor Donches was here last meeting for the Budget Committee and mentioned that the Patrolmen's Union is negotiating a new contract to start July 1st. Has that been factored into your budget for the fiscal year 2019?
Yes, Chief Lavoy, that's what the confidential contingency is.
Okay.
And it's that number that's in there is our best case scenario. So certainly we would hope to get something lower than that, but you never know, and that's part of negotiation.
Okay. And
Follow-up, go ahead.
thank you. The mayor also cut from your proposed budget to him, cut about $94,000. Do you have a plan, if the board goes along with that cut, where that will come from within the department?
Not at this time. However, certainly, and the reason I say that is, obviously we have a very large police department, and right now 93% of our budget is payroll. So when I go over, a summary of the budget, you'll realize we virtually level funded everything. So the money, our only increase that we've had has been basically for salary increases, in-grade promotions, collective bargaining that's already agreed upon, raises, things of that sort, longevity, things that were in collective bargaining agreements. And that, quite frankly, came out to a 2.9% without us adding a dime, except for $1,000 and like $1,023 for water, because that was what the city suggested we go up. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room. Now, I certainly, the easy thing is we could take it out of overtime. But overtime's crucial. We're already about $500,000 underfunded in overtime from what we spend. And we've made up for that in the past by attrition. Certainly, that's not the greatest way to budget, but that's been our reality for a very long time. So at this time, I certainly I can't tell you the police are going to shut down because the mayor dropped us from a 2.9 back to a 2.5, and it's about just under $95,000. I certainly don't mean that at all. And again, it's not cutting us. It's cutting the increase we're allowed to have. It's way too early. I'd have to see where we're at. But no, to answer your question, the department is not going to collapse having to do that. We certainly would prefer not to do that because, again, it's not like we're working with a whole lot of money to start with. Because again, most of it's encumbered. It's 93% salary. But it would be too early just to pick a place to say I could cut it from because we'll have to see.
All
Could I
set?
add to that?
Yes.
Could I add to that?
Yep.
Um,
Could you just identify yourself for the
Karen
record?
Smith, business manager. And just to add to it, we have items that have contingency factors, such as the chief had mentioned, our contingency account for negotiations. Certainly, that's something that we can't cut at this point. We're negotiating. We don't know what we're going to be working with. Other items that would be contingent is the price of gasoline. We've budgeted at a forecasted, expecting gas prices to go up. We don't want to cut that at this time. Also repairs and maintenance. I budget for repairs anticipating that there's a repair. If I go into that line item and say, let's gamble, we don't know, let's cut that line. We've talked and we've decided we can't cut. We've looked at all these lines and there's nothing in there to cut at this time. So we worked diligently and we came in at just under 3%. I just wanted to add that.
Chief?
And if I can also add, Chief Lavoie, we didn't just throw together the budget either. We certainly worked hard to save, money in every aspect of the budget. Matter of fact, the surf account, certainly not out of our budget, but it's still out of the same pot of money, the city budget. We were able to defer multiple vehicles, which saved the city almost $200,000 just for this upcoming fiscal year. So, as always, we're certainly trying to do our part. It's hard when you're 93% budget.
Alderman McCarthy first, and
Yeah, couple of questions about salaries. You have 179 budgeted positions in the 2017 and in the 2018 budget,
Yes,
and 172 of those are full.
yes.
So I guess, I was just looking at the actuals, and it looks like you're a couple of percent underspent for 8 months on the salary, but substantially closer to fully spent on overtime. It's like 64% of salaries and 91% of overtime. So, it would seem, given that we seem to have trouble keeping the 179 full anyway, that the mayor's adjustment probably can come out of the surplus in the salary line item. But then we have to worry about I assume that shortage in the regular salaries is what's paying for the overtime excess at the moment.
Yeah, Chief
Would you
Lavoie.
like me to speak to that?
Sure.
Sure. Yes, the 51,800 attrition account, that's budgeted at 185,000 in the negative, and that was already increased. We usually do, we increase that by 45,000. So we planned already to plan for attrition, and then we knew that we were also going to be having people that we anticipated to retire, that we couldn't take them out of the salary line because they hadn't retired. It was anticipated, pretty sure they were retiring, but not enough to actually eliminate their name from a payroll because they were still in the books. So that's already been done as far as moving that from the FY19 budget, planning for those positions. In fact, we did it to the week. We've actually done right through the academy date of August. So that is very, very much in line with what we're anticipating. As far as future attrition, I increased it by 45,000. I already have 100,000 in there, 140,000 that I've planned for attrition. If there's more than that, again, it's a ballpark. It's very close.
Chief?
Chief Lavoie, if I can add too, we're swearing in 3 new officers April 17th, and we have another test Saturday. So again, we're on a constant quest to get up to full staffing. I mean, we've done a workload assessment, our most recent one last year. You know, we're over 20 officers short of what we're supposed to be. But, you know, I certainly wouldn't come here and ask for that because I know I can't fill it. There's just not enough candidates. But if we don't get up, you know, our quest to be full staff budgeted is offset. If we don't, we're just going to end up paying more in overtime. And we just hope that the overtime doesn't exceed the attrition. But because we have minimum staffing and we certainly have, you know, officer safety and things of that sort. So basically it's kind of a vicious wheel we're on to cover that.
You all said Alderman McCarthy?
Yeah.
Alderman Kelly?
Yeah, thank you for putting together all this information. My question is that the proposed budget in your 2019 and the proposed budget in the mayor's is about $340,000 difference. So it's not that 94 if this is actually your number. So the 30,861,495 is what's in yours, and in this budget it says 30,521,844. So was there adjustment between printing it?
Be under benefits, I have to look at which version at some point, because I know theirs is more recent, and
Okay.
ours was back in,
It's February 13th at the top.
exactly.
I just want to make sure we're
Yeah.
not $400,000 off from where you guys want to be versus this 94.
Right, I'd have to compare them. Again, it's based on date of printing, and I know they've adjusted the benefits account, so most likely that would be my expectation. It's something within the benefits account.
Okay.
Alderman Kelly, is the one that's over the police budget or the mayor's budget?
The police budget is over by
It's
about,
probably because I believe, and I could be wrong, that they take contingency out and put it in a separate account. And
Okay.
it's not reflected in the mayor's budget, it's somewhere else.
okay. It's just when you're looking at the numbers, it's hard
Yeah,
to
yeah.
rectify 94 versus, 400.
So Chief, just for the edification of the new members, could you just give us a little scenario on why it's so difficult to get officers onto the force these days, and also what happens sometimes when you get the people to the end of the road and all of a sudden you lose them? And the other is, could you just relate to them how much it costs to get an officer from day one taking a test next Saturday to on the street?
Absolutely. You know, this has been several years, and it's a nationwide issue right now. Certainly, you know, I'm very proud to say the National Police Department has extremely high standards, and we should. In my opinion, certainly your word has to be your bond, and what washes a lot of people is their history. And, you know, I could get up to full staff at Saturday's test, quite frankly. But it's certainly not something any of you would want me to do, nor the police commission, because we would be hiring people that most definitely shouldn't be police officers and definitely shouldn't be national police officers. It's a tough time in America to be a police officer. I mean, we all watch the news. I mean, officers are getting, you know, shot and killed sitting in their police cars. So it's kind of tough, especially with this millennial generation, you know, to say, hey, let's do this job. And quite frankly, you have to work nights, weekends, holidays. We're open 24/7, 365. You know, we have a rotating shift. So, I mean, you literally get one Saturday, Sunday off every 6 weeks. None of those are great selling points compared to the private sector. So certainly it's a rare person we're looking for to start with. And then our standards are much higher than average, but they should be. So that hurts us. And as far as the people we get, you know, a large portion of people fail the initial testing, which is not very hard. I mean, it's basic knowledge, the basic physical, they fail. We lose 50% of the people. First off, 15% to 20% that paid for the test don't even show up. So evidently they had something much more important to do that day than secure a job for the rest of their life. But those aren't the people we would want anyway. And 50% of those left are going to fail the test. And then they start our oral board rounds and things of that sort. And we had 5 people for this upcoming academy, and that we're going to get sworn in on the 17th. And we lost 2 at the polygraph stage. So certainly New Hampshire, we polygraph. I think it's hugely important because we continue to find people that lied to us. So if it weren't working, you know, we wouldn't be using it, but it certainly is. As far as getting a person to day one, it's a lot of money, but day one's nothing, quite frankly. To get a person that's actively productive for us, that's a functional officer, because keep in mind, their first almost year is completely training, whether it be the police academy, field training, our own mini academy, things of that sort. So they're not, I don't want to say much use to us, but they're certainly not, we don't get a dividend from them, quite frankly, for at least 2 years, if not a little more. And by then, I believe all of our money we put into them is close to $300,000. So certainly, it's an art, it's not a science. We, knock on wood, we've been fairly successful at it, but it's a big gamble, and you really need to get it right. And that's why we have a tried and true system, and we believe in it, and it costs us a lot of officers, but it gives us officers that all of you, I would hope, can be proud of, as I am.
So there are occasions when you get people coming out of the academy that have done well, and you're ready to bring them into your system, and you lose them.
We don't lose people that made it through the academy often, because usually things come to light prior to that. Again, like these two officers, these two candidates out of the 5 we were going to have, failed the polygraph portion of the background prior to going to the academy. Certainly, we have had people fail their probationary year, which is their first year, but that's rare. Again, it's an art, but we're very good at it. So,
But
yeah.
you lose them to other departments or the FBI? Or?
We don't lose people usually that early. Usually 3 or 4 years, 5 years, when they're the most productive, when they're entering the most productive aspect of their career. You know, 5 to 12 as a patrolman before they make detective or sergeant. We lose a great many. This year we've already lost, DEA, Secret Service, several. We lose people to the FBI constantly. And again, in my opinion, that's a credit to us. It's a credit to the city, because they don't just take people. And what makes somebody outstanding for us makes them outstanding for anybody. So we certainly hate to lose them, because unfortunately all that experience is exactly what the federal agencies want: DEA, FBI, Secret Service. So you know what? That's no fun. We certainly can't compete with the money and the benefits the federal agencies pay. But again, I take that as a compliment, which means we're doing the right thing.
Sure. Other questions? Alderman Tenza.
Chief, there's a increase in the revenue for next year, about $40,000, maybe a little bit more. Can you just explain what that is from?
If Karen could speak to that, if you don't mind.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes, we had a change in the sale of copies. Initially, the state was going to take over, and they changed their mind, and they gave it back to us. So we had decreased our anticipated revenues, and it's actually occurring this year. We're continuing to give photocopies. For example, if you want a copy of your accident report, you get it from our records department, and there's a charge for it. So we're continuing to do that, and so the revenues will be going back up. That would account for that.
Chief?
And that was actually a change in the Driver Privacy Act law. It wasn't really a change, it's just the legislature decided that they wanted to interpret it differently and say that Department of Motor Vehicle was the only agency that could disseminate accident reports, even if a person was involved in the accident. And because of that, they took it all away from police departments, and then they realized that that was certainly a storm that they were not ready to handle, and they decided that the police departments had it right in the first place, and it was being interpreted properly, so it came back to us. So that's kind of the legislative aspect of that.
I noticed you lost some revenue from the carry permit.
We did. No reason now, unless you want reciprocal, benefits, and certainly that's not many people, so we did lose a large amount of revenue from that.
Other questions? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. And I was going to mention that the constitutional carry that just got passed by the legislature. So again, the mayor cut you 94,000. So if you take that 3,000, I think is what you listed in minus on the permitting. So that would probably make that number 97,000, basically what your net loss would be then.
Yeah, I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
Did you want to address your capital projects while we're here?
You want to talk about that?
Sure.
Alderman O'Brien,
I just want to
McCarthy?
clarify on the permits, that doesn't, cutting the revenue doesn't cut anything out of the appropriations for the department.
That's true. It goes through that.
It raises the amount that has to be raised by taxes to support the budget, but That's carried by the city, not by the department.
That's right, it doesn't go just to us now that I think of it.
Okay. Mrs. Smith?
Yes, and when I was speaking earlier regarding the contingency items, and I was referring to repairs and maintenance, I just want a point of clarification that when we do maintenance on our HVAC system, we're doing a annual maintenance. And I want to just make a clarification that as far as our capital project, I do know that we have, I think it's the library, public works, fire, they all have the same issue that we have, and that would be HVAC project. What ours is it's a maintenance, it's an actual room that we have issues with that's on the capital project. And we're working with the treasurer's office to seek other funding on that at this time, to see what they could do, because we're not the only ones that have issues. Like I stated, the other departments who are also having issues. And I just want to make that note.
Okay. Chief?
And I believe the Capital Improvement Committee gave that an A2 rating. However, we're trying to find the funding.
Alderman O'Brien?
To that vein, familiar with that with my experience with fire. Most of the buildings now are air-conditioned. At one time, they weren't, but it's pretty normal now. Can you get together with the other departments to try to come to some agreement with that, to hire a particular contractor? Is that at all possible to get the best deal there to do the maintenance? And, because I know like a lot of this does, if you don't fix it, preventive maintenance and everything, you get into the complex problems in the future if it's left too long, you know?
Sure. Is that something, do they allow us to do?
Karen Smith, we currently do preventive maintenance on an annual basis, and that's what we're talking about. We're doing it right now in the spring. They've come in, we have a contract. As far as the project, I believe that's what we're discussing, is having somebody come in and working together to get funding to work on a project collectively for all these different departments. I
Okay,
don't know about
yeah.
anything for future, for maintenance. I can't speak to that.
Other questions? Anything else that you would like to impart to the Budget Committee?
No, just again, certainly thank you. Thank you for your time. I mean, we appreciate you always giving us an ear at least. And as you know, in the past, and we will continue to do so, every dime we ask for, we're totally transparent, and we will certainly justify every cent.
I'd be remiss if I didn't indicate that Nashua is selected as one of the safest cities, if not the safest city in the United States to live. And I'm sure that's a certain high credit to the police department making it so. So from the city, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And there was actually Wallet Hub in 2017 that picked Nashua as the safest city in the nation. And, certainly that's a huge credit to the police and the men and women that work at the police department, but it's also a huge credit to the city because, that doesn't happen without an outstanding fire department, an outstanding, government, outstanding rescue services, health services. It does take a village, and that is a big reason, but we will certainly be happy to take your compliment. Thank you.
Alderman McCarthy.
One last question. I noted from your slides that the civilian positions are basically all filled except for one.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Does that mean we're spending less overtime money on backfilling civilian positions with sworn officers than we used to?
Certainly, there's only a very few, and none of those are open right now, that are backfilled by officers. Those are only in communications. 99% of our civilian slots are not officer fillable, and the current one we have open now is a detective secretary position.
Also, you're still collecting at the police station medications and for people who want to get.
Certainly, we have a drug take-back box right in the lobby of our station, 24 hours a day. Walk right in, drop it in. Certainly there's some restrictions, no needles, no liquids, things of that sort. But, nobody asks your name, no one asks a question, and it's for your prescription drugs, and it's open anytime.
That being used quite extensively?
It is. Oftentimes I get briefed on the amounts, but we have to empty it probably every 10 days to 2 weeks. So that's quite a bit considering how little pills weigh.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions? Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to table the budget R 18019?
The motion on the floor is to table R 18019 till the next budget review committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman O'Brien? Yep, let's see, general discussion? Any general discussion? Alderman Wilshire.
I just wanted to note for the record that Commissioner Tolner was not in attendance tonight.
Go up to the mic, though.
Chief Lavoy trying to defend Commissioner Tolner. He's actually stuck in Maine on business. He was planning on being here, but he wasn't able to do so.
On his way back from Fenway, is he?
I didn't say it. He told me Maine. I did not question him.
They won to the 13th, by the way. Okay. Any other general discussion? No. Public comment? There's no public. Remarks by Alderman? Nope. We don't need a non-public. Do I have motion? Alderman Wilshire.
Move to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We adjourn at 7:41.
This is a very reasonable.